Hello everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my April wrap-up. I will apologize now if you can hear any birds or cars going by. I have my windows open because it is a beautiful spring day and the birds are having a really fun time in the tree outside. So I do apologize if you can hear any of that, but yes, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Ye Olde April wrap-up. This month I ended up reading 9 books, which was one under my monthly goal of reading 10. That's okay because last month I read 11, so it balances and I'm not too worried about it. But so this month was pretty good overall. It wasn't terribly bad, terribly wonderful. We had a good old rating of books, everything from a 2-star to a bunch of DNFs and 1 5-star. So yeah, I read 9 books, but I did also DNF 3. Real quick, I'll tell you what I DNF'd this month. I ended up DNFing The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. I DNF'd Night of the Raven, Dawn of the Dove by Rati Mehrotra. I think that's how you pronounce their last name. And I DNF'd my reread of The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke this month. None of them were doing it for me, so we moved onward and upward to better things. This month I started off with finishing up my read of The Stars Undying by Emery Robin, which I had started back in March. This is an epic sci-fi that I ended up giving about 4 stars to. It's probably a little lower than that, but it's also one of those books that I know I need to reread and give another shot to, because I think there's just so much happening here that I need to be in the right mood for a really political sci-fi and really dig my teeth into it now that I kind of know what's going on. And I gotta say, audiobook, so boring. Both narrators that they got for it were so monotone and just boring to listen to. So it was a time to be engaged by this book because of the audiobook. So I think this is one of those ones that'll need to be reread sans audiobook without it, which you guys know is a little bit of a trick for me because I just reading with audiobooks is my favorite thing in the world. And reading without audiobooks I find right now really tricky to do because I need the audiobooks to focus on what I'm doing. So I will eventually come back to this and reread it, but for now it gets 4 stars. It's a good book. It's very well done. This is the retelling of Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. I actually made a list of people in the book because there were so many freaking characters that I couldn't keep them all straight. So I wrote a list at the front of the book because there was also not a character list in here, which there should be, and a glossary. There should be that in here because this is a lot to take in. But this is about Princess Altagracia, who has lost everything after a bloody civil war. Her twin sister has claimed the crown, which was hers by birthright. So she kind of accepts help from Matthias Sarin, who is a commander, and they basically try to take back her city, and it's all that kind of stuff. And it's a really interesting read because Altagracia is a very, very unreliable narrator from the beginning because she's so weak and so oh, poor me. And she constantly admits that she lies to you as the reader. So you know that she is not telling the truth in some instances, and then she kind of doubles back on her words in some points. But by the end, she is feral. So, and she knows what she's doing. So yeah, I'm very interested to reread this. And I believe this is the first in a series, trilogy, duology, something like that. It's number 1. So also intrigued to see where this goes from here. But yeah, 4 stars. Then I dove into a reread and thus a read of The Assassin's Apprentice and the rest of the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. So I'll talk about them now because this was probably the highlight of my month, to be honest. I, many years ago, read The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb because I had heard on the internet that it was wonderful and that Robin Hobb was queen of fantasy. And when I read it, I was like, really? Because this wasn't really that fantasy to me. The ending kind of got it, and I was like, but the rest of it was kind of boring because at the time I was not used to reading slower churning fantasies like this. Now that I'm more well versed in the epic fantasy genre and I know what to expect when going into a Robin Hobb, I absolutely adored this reread. So I gave the first book 4 stars, reread it an entire one day. It is so much fun to revisit epic books like this. And you guys know how much I love rereading books. And this was no exception. I had so much fun with this one, and then immediately dove into The Royal Assassin, which I gave 4.5 stars. It's so good. I read these 2 in one weekend. And then I started The Assassin's Quest that same weekend, but ended up finishing it much later in the month because it is a lot chunkier and I was kind of in a weird reading mood. And I almost needed to force myself to finish this, even though I really wanted to finish it. It was such a weird situation to be in, but I ended up giving this one 5 stars. So we have a 4 star, 4.5, and a 5 in this trilogy, and they were so good. So this trilogy is the very first trilogy in Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings, big, massive, encompassing series. The next one, I don't know if you can kind of see it, you can see a little bit of the Ship of Magic here, is the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which I have on my shelves. I ordered it when I was reading this one, and I cannot wait to get to it. I have fallen so in love with Robin Hobb's storytelling. She is unparalleled with character arcs and the way that her characters change and grow throughout just a single book. So this trilogy follows Fitz Farseer, or Fitz Chivalry Farseer, who is the bastard son of the Crown Prince Chivalry Farseer. So his name, Fitz Chivalry, is literally like what they would use to say like the bastard son of chivalry, Fitz Chivalry. So he goes by Fitz, and he ends up being dropped off at Buckkeep Castle, where his family is, where his, like, you know, the Farseer line is, and he's like 6 years old, and then he starts being taken care of by the stable master, Burrich, and under the name of the king basically accepts him, and Chivalry also accepts him. It was so good. And then it like, first book basically follows Fitz from the age of 6 to 14-ish. The next one is 14, 15, 16, roughly, and then he's like 16 to 20 in this one. I'm not entirely sure. I had to keep reminding myself that Fitz was a kid in these books because he goes through so much that by the time we get to the Royal Assassin, people are treating him like a full-grown man. And he feels like he's like 25, 30 years old in these books because he's gone through so much. But then every once in a while, he'll whine and complain, and I'll be like, oh yeah, he's 15. And I'll be like, why is he complaining about this? I'm like, oh, no. He has no idea. He's 15. He's just a child. It's so interesting to get like the politics of the Six Duchies through Fitz's eyes throughout this entire trilogy, because as a 6-year-old who's witnessing all these comments from the adults around him, you as a reader kind of understand it, but Fitz is like, I don't understand what's going on. So you get like a little bit of the politics in this one, and then you really get them in the Royal Assassin. Royal Assassin's so good. The politics are just incredible. And then in Assassin's Quest, you get to experience more of the Six Duchies. You don't stay in Buckkeep, you go on an adventure with Fitz, hence the name Assassin's Quest. And it's so good. And I'm low-key convincing myself that I want to start the Mad Ship Traders, or the Live Ship Traders trilogy, like right now. But I have a plan to read the Poppy War trilogy next, so. But yes, this is a phenomenal series, and I'm so excited to keep going. I love it. You guys can watch my previous vlogs on this if you want more details about Robin Hobb, but love those books. In between there, I also read The High Mountains of Portugal by Jan Martel for book club. I ended up giving this one 2 stars. I am so tired of reading narratives where men just grieve their wives, and that's all that women are in these books. They're just grief fodder. So tired of it. I've read too many books like that in the past few years, and this book just didn't make any sense. I did not like the reading experience. It follows 3 separate stories that do connect in some kind of a way. I just found it ridiculous and just not for me, but you might like it. I also was like, completely forgot that Jan Martel wrote The Life of Pi, and I remember reading that one in high school and really not enjoying it either, so maybe Jan Martel is just not for me. But if you enjoy Jan Martel, you might like that one. You might like it. Then I ended up reading The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty, and this was so much fun. I gave this 4.5 stars. It is so exciting and so fun, and I think upon a reread, I think this might even be a 5-star. There's a lot of that in my life where I'm like, what if I reread this and like see its brilliance? Because that happens to me. It happened to me when I reread Gideon. Realized that it was a full 5-star, one of my favorite books of all time. This was just so much fun. I love the fact that our protagonist was, or is in this book, like over 30 years old, has a daughter who's 10, and has like the stakes in life of just wanting a quiet life, but yet she gets so wrapped up in this story that literally she will do anything to get back to her daughter in that quiet life. And oh my gosh, I love this so much. And I really love the way that this story was framed overall, because we have a scribe, I forget his name, Jamal al-Hili is our scribe who's essentially writing down these stories of Amina, and he introduces himself right at the beginning saying like, this is what's going on, but in the way of like chapter 1 then is Amina talking out loud And then right at the beginning, we get a little bit of a conversation between the two of them, just from Amina's point of view, which is so fun because in these little moments where Jamal like interrupts her or like says something to the side that we don't actually get what he says, but we get Amina's reaction to it, we get so much character from her. I loved this. This is so good. And you know what? We're slowly leaking into our pirate era. And I love it. I love the fact that more nautical books are coming out and like action-packed piratey stuff. Like we got this one and we have H.M. Long's Darkwater Daughter that's coming out in July. I'm so excited. This is about Amina, of course, who ends up being tasked by a mother of a previous crewmate of hers, like there's a connection there, to find her granddaughter who's been kidnapped. And Amina's like, okay. The grandmother's like offering her so much money she cannot refuse. So, and then she gets the gang back together, and this job that she thinks is fairly simple at the beginning ends up being one of the most harrowing of her life. After that, I ended up reading A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, which is the entrance into my weird reading mood. I was trying to find something short and snappy and not in my usual genre, because this is horror, to get me out of my weird reading mood, because I wanted to read everything, but nothing was sticking, hence the 3 DNFs this month. None of my epic fantasy was working. I just wanted something quick and snappy and just something that I could read in one sitting, which this definitely delivered. This was definitely weird and spooky, and it did what I want a lot of thriller books to do and they don't do, in like the reveal part of it, which is where they lean into what they're kind of alluding to rather than backing away and giving it a really mundane answer. This leaned into the weird and I think it was really great. I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars because it just like overall was really entertaining but not that great. And I think you guys know how much I loved Metal and Bone. I'm so excited to read more of T. Kingfisher, both her fantasy and her horror. So I won't give you a super detailed look at this because this is definitely a book that, because it is so small, you kind of want to go in blind. But it is about Sam. Sam goes home to spend some time with her mother because her brother says like, hey, something's off with mom. And so Sam goes home and it ends up being this, she's staying in her grandma's old house where she grew up for a little bit, and there's a lot of oppressive energy because her grandma was very oppressive. Something funky dunky is going on with her mom and this house. And I think that's all I'll tell you. Our main character is a bug scientist, bug archaeologist, if you will. But I did have a comment on one of my videos when I read this in my vlog saying that they were worried because of their arachnophobia. No spiders are mentioned in this book. There are ladybugs, lots of ladybugs. So definitely be warned of that if you are at all afraid of ladybugs or bugs in general. This was really entertaining. But yeah, only 3.5 stars. During that weird reading time, I ended up listening to The Thread of Angels by Rebecca. The Tread, one of those two, by Rebecca Roanhorse. It's a little novella that I got through Scribd, and I only gave this 2.5 stars. Honestly, it got like a full 0.5 star from me just for the audiobook narrator because the audiobook narrator's voice was exceptional. But the book itself was boring and a little odd. Like, I thought it had so much potential at the beginning. I was very intrigued by it because the audiobook narrator was so good. But I didn't really enjoy the book as a whole, and it actually took me like a week to finish it because I listened to 2 hours of it in like 45 minutes because I was listening to it really fast. Forgot about it for an entire weekend and then came back to it on like a Monday, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I was reading that. Let me finish that really quickly. So it was just fine for me. It's not really there. I couldn't even tell you what it's about, really. Like, our main character's sister is being incarcerated for something wrong. She's a demon, but she can pass as like not being a demon because she lacks like the normal markings of a demon. I don't know. It's interesting and weird, but yeah. Lastly, the 9th book of the month that I read was the Monsters Readify by Leslie Penelope, which I ended up giving 4.5 stars. This was so much fun, you guys. I love me a good heist book. Like, literally all the heist books that I've read have been amazing and I've loved. And I think that's because they are combined, like a lot of heist books are combined with the found family trope, and that is my favorite trope. So this was no exception. I love this so much. It's set in the 1920s. It follows Clara Johnson, who is a like low-key legend due to some stuff that she did in 1919. But at the moment, she's kind of laying low. She's working at the local newspaper. She's not, doing too much, but she is helping the occasional person do this thing where they basically enter into a deal with something called an enigma. And enigmas in this world are spirits. Our girl Clara Johnson can see spirits and can see ghosts because of how she was born. She's a crossroads child of some kind. Is that what she's called? She was born, yeah, she was born at the crossroads. That's right. In this, when you make a deal with an enigma, you get a charm, which is what you've asked for, but you also have to pay for it, which is through a trick. So you end up being haunted by something for the rest of your life, basically, for having this charm dealt to you. And so Clara hates making these deals, but she's like bound to help if anyone ever asks her for help. So she often makes these deals, and she herself has made a deal with a particular enigma called the Empress. During this, the Empress tells Clara that she basically needs to help them find a ring. And this ring is causing a lot of the disappearances in her city at the time. The ring itself is extremely dangerous, but it's also in the possession of a very, very well-off, highly protected woman that never takes the ring off. So thus starts the heist. So Clara has her friend Zelda with her. Zelda's not made a charm trick kind of a deal. She's just a very good pickpocket and has gotten into a lot of trouble. So she has Zelda on her team, and during this moment where she tries to make like the original grab, she witnesses another team trying to do this grab as well, and one of the members getting absolutely murdered, soul sucked out of them, kind of a vibe. And so she calls it off and then teams together with the remaining member of that team, and gathers a couple other people around her who all have charms and tricks to try and steal this ring and like save their town, because so many people are going missing. It was so good. The intrigue in this, level of intrigue, because of the magic and the ghosts and the spirits and like what's actually happening, why is the ring important, incredible. And then we also get a love story between Clara and Israel, who is like her counterpart in this. Stunning. And the other like three characters, the lesser, kind of like, you have your two main characters, or maybe the lesser ones, are so good as well. This was so fantastic. I gave this 4.5 stars, and I think it might be one of those that I don't know, upon reread it might be a 5-star, but for now it's 4.5 stars and I really enjoyed it. Anyways, my friends, that is it for my April wrap up. I am planning on doing a little bit of reading specifically for May, but other than, as I mentioned earlier, I would really like to read the entire Poppy War trilogy this month. Other than this, I don't really have any plans other than that for reading. I will be continuing my read of the second Leviathan Wakes book, which is Caliban's War. And I also have a book club book that I do have to read this month called The 7 Moons of Ma'ali Almeida, which I'm excited to read, and I will be reading very, very soon because we're meeting this weekend for book club. And other than that, we're just gonna kind of vibe and see what happens. I would potentially like to start the Mad Ship trilogy if I read the Poppy War trilogy really fast, dive into my next trilogy read. Who knows? But yes, let me know down below what you guys are reading for May and what your favorite book was in April, because I would love to know. That's it for me. I will catch you in another video very, very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.